story in the world is still COVID-19. Fatalities are increasing, but so also are the recoveries. Countries are fighting this pandemic. In Nigeria, a lot has happened. The airports are closed to international flights and in some cases, even local flights. Land borders are closed. Economic activities are the barest minimum. It's a big story, and the Nigerian situation is our focus. You're welcome. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Life in an isolation center may not be so bad, according to an individual who prefers to remain anonymous. The individual tells Channels Television that the biggest problem at the center is boredom, which is basically from being confined to their rooms for days with no permission to step outside. Painting a picture of the environment, we're told that every patient is occupying a room to him or herself, fully air-conditioned with a TV set in each room. Electricity is 24-hour supply. 3 square meal is given at the right time. Toilets are kept clean. The caregivers are professional, but sometimes there are delayed responses. Experts have assured that COVID-19 is not a death sentence, and the number of recoveries, which is currently over 120,000, according to Johns Hopkins University in the United States of America, is a proof. The responsibility of everyone should be to stay safe and curtail the spread, which is why the authorities are preaching social distancing and self-isolation for individuals who suspect they may have been in contact with infected individuals. Journalist Dele Momodu fell into this category recently when he returned from London in the United Kingdom. While in self-isolation, he encouraged others who suspect that they have had contact with anyone who is positive to do the same.
This has been a moment of happy reflections for me. I'm doing my work. You can see I'm in my house. I'm in my library. I have loads and loads of books that I bought that I have not had time to read. Now I'm able to write some of my books, and so I want to also advise others out there that as we look forward to an end to this evil scourge, we must make the best of our time. Let's stay at home as much as possible so that we don't get others into trouble. I wish you well, and God bless you all.
Many roads in almost all the states in the country reflect global mood, lacking its usual activities in this fight against COVID-19. Hung from cars are missing, traffic has disappeared as the sit-at-home directive takes effect. In Lagos, the commercial capital of the country, shops that deal in items other than food have been shut following the order of the state government. It's also important to keep the food stores clean and safe, so some state governments have embraced fumigation in markets.
We
have been instructed on how to protect ourselves from the pandemic. We have also been told to keep water in containers with soap so that anyone who wants to buy from us would wash their hands. We're also told to wash our hands as well as wear gloves and cover our nose. We're also to use the sanitizers and ensure our customers use it too.
Many markets have taken the use of sanitizers to their gates after reducing the avenue of entering the market.
Well, about 10 gates. We have locked 7 out of those 10 gates. We have 3 that's open so that we can monitor those who are going in and those who are going out. And we've gotten a sanitizer. This sanitizer, I can tell you today, we have used over 50 sanitizer today, just today alone, from like 7 o'clock in the morning when people start coming in till now. And you can imagine how many we are going to use for just today. We are even advised to lock more gates so that we can monitor more people that are coming to the market, because it's a huge market that people come and then people cannot just stay at home without eating food. I'm very sure that's what the government is putting into consideration. That was why the market is not locked, because people are so jam-packed, they come in numbers for goods. But we are doing our own best, just like when you go out and you see people that are coming in, they sanitize them and we have people in the market that are also going around to see who is this, in case of any eventuality, we quickly take action. What we did on Thursday was usually an environmental day, and I called meeting for all sections in the market, including those women selling around, that whoever you find that is sick, quickly notify us. Tell us the person is sick. We have, some security officer here that quickly take him to the, to the hospital, nearby hospital here, so that they can text him and know what's wrong with him. And that has been ongoing. We have been doing that. Up till now, we have not gotten any casualty, that, somebody is sick. And we tell them that if I'm also feeling whatever they told us about the coronavirus, in terms of having headache, coughing and all that, remain at home, don't come to the market. We have given them that order. So anybody that is sick, either headache or feverish, just remain at home. That's the order we give them, and people are complying.
Okay, so you don't need people going round to check, because some people might be like, I beg, I don't want my tomatoes.
No. We tell the neighbors. Everybody has neighbors. That once somebody that's beside you is having issue, just let us know. He may not tell us. The person may not tell us, but I mean, when you're with somebody, you should be able to know how he does his thing on a daily basis. So inform us. Once you inform us, we take action on that.
Since the schools are shut, children of some of the store owners have decided to get busy. With the permission of the management of the market, they formed themselves into one group and made their concern the education and enforcement of preventive measures in the market.
We are assisting the market by sanitizing everybody coming into the market. We ensure every individual coming in and going out of the market is being sanitized by using the disinfectants issued to us by the market chairman. We have over like 30 people. Some are graduates actually, while some are students who came back from school, which I think they are more enlightened about the virus, about the pandemic around going on. So we have to use them so that they can be able to orient people who are coming in and people are actually in the market as well. But like you can see, when you came in, you find some people outside sanitizing others, while there are some also in the market giving it to dealers and sellers and even buyers as well.
The bigger businesses feel the greater impact. Imports and exports, real estate, and indeed all aspects have been hit.
We have been sitting at home. We are doing nothing, and we cannot do anything at all. Because all over the world, even from where we import our goods, precisely, it's China, nothing is happening there. So our business have been grounded. We are not importing and we are not selling. The business aspect of it, which is the developer aspect of it, most of our properties are not being sold. The ones we built are not being sold. Even the one we want to rent, nobody's renting. Then contracting. The government will give you a contract now because everything is shut down. So it's really telling on us. The coronavirus pandemic is a problem to the whole world, not only to me. And to those of us, Dibos, it is really hitting hard on us. We only have to resign our faith to God.
The accumulation of this impact is what economist Bismarck Rwani warns the country to brace up for.
The GDP is roughly $450 billion. And that's the total output in 1 year. Now, if you take this activity, what has happened, 2 weeks will be 2 over 365. In other words, it will cost you, just arithmetically, it will cost you almost 1 or 2% of GDP, right? Because 2 weeks or 3 weeks is equivalent to 1% of 365. However, the cumulative effect and the compression in economic activity is going to be much more exponential. Our impression is that in Q1, you are going to have a negative growth of at least 1.5%, from positive growth in Q4 of 2.55. And that, if you take the range, It's like almost 100% less activity in Q1. It will continue into Q2, depending on two things. One, whether we have a mild attack or a moderate attack. So two quarters of negative growth is a recession. So if we have negative growth in Q1, negative growth in Q2, I'm assuming that there will be a recession. The Nigerian economy is $450 billion, 147 trillion naira. The total intervention money announced is 3.5 trillion naira, right? The other intervention funds, the loans that have increased, is another 2.5 trillion. So add the two together, you have 6 trillion, right? The budget itself, the total budget spend for the federal government reduced now is 9 trillion. Add the 9 to this 7. So let's say we have 15 or 16 or 20. 10% of 147 trillion, 10% is 14 trillion. All of this put together is not up to 10%. The stimulant you require is much more.
While the transport sector has not been banned, its activities have been reduced following the sit-at-home directive being enforced by many of the public and private organizations. For the operations, however, rules have been set out. All transport operators and companies are expected to sanitize their parks and garages regularly and continuously. All transport operators and companies are expected to have at the entrance of their respective parks and garages washing hand equipment with soap and running water. All operators are expected to have alcohol-based sanitizers in their vehicles for the use of drivers, conductors, and passengers. The leadership in the transport sector have taken some of this directive to the people by way of demonstration. All operators are also not allowed to overcrowd their vehicles at this point in time. Buses should be at 60% capacity and not 100%. But this has been difficult as the operators are concerned with a possible loss in revenue.
They themselves know that the masses secure of life is very important. So we think they will have to pay for the loss in their own self. Concerning what we are seeing now, we must reduce our own dues and they must reduce so that they won't increase to the people that they are not going to work. So how will they see money to pay when they increase it? And we cannot afford them to work when the government said they shouldn't work. So we make sure the dues go down so we can do that.
The education sector is also still quiet. Vacant classroom, empty playground, stationary school buses. It's a contrast to what is the usual in many schools in Nigeria, but this is for the best. This is one of the measures to curb the spread of COVID-19, the deadly virus which is currently forcing countries to shut down social, economic and other sectors, leaving only the barest minimum. The education sector in Nigeria is one of those that have had to be shut down to protect the little ones.
It's for all of us leaders to rise to the challenge. And I'm appealing that all of us collectively should rise to it. And that was why, as governors of Northwest, when we met yesterday in Kaduna, we resolved to close public schools and make sure that we take certain proactive measures, which of course include coming up with isolation centers such as this one. So it's a collective responsibility, but I will appeal as well to the federal government to do more, and especially in terms of making people aware of the dangers that the coronavirus really portends.
Although their teachers miss them, they say they prefer it this way. But they say the children should remember that this will be over and school would resume. But for now, they need to practice the preventive measures they've been taught.
Before we even released the children on our parts, we took some precautionary measures just to help keep our children safe. You must have seen as you came in, the hand wash is here. We made sure everyone who came into the school compound had a thorough hand wash. We made sanitizers available. We disinfected the environment, the classes, the special rooms more frequently than we did in the past.
So now that they are home, what message do you have for them?
Keep your books beside you, because by the grace of God, we trust that we will put this behind us and come back to school once again to continue our studies.
The unusual calmness can be seen in almost all public offices across the states of the Federation. Government, both at the state and the federal level, have asked civil servants to stay at home to avoid clusters, which could easily accelerate the spread. Over 90% of the cases recorded so far are individuals who return from countries which have recorded cases before Nigeria, which is the reason for the restriction of flights from 15 countries, even before the prohibition of international flights at the Port Harcourt, Kano and Enugu international airports from the 21st of March, while Lagos and Abuja were added on Monday, the 23rd of March. To further tighten the reins against importation of cases, the land borders have also been closed from the 24th of March.
After a further review, Mr. President, on the recommendation of the Presidential Task Force, has approved the following additional measures. 1, suspension of the weekly Federal Executive Council meetings until further notice. 2, postponement of the meeting of the Council of State, which was scheduled to take place on Thursday, the 26th of March 2020. 3, all land borders that have been hitherto under partial closure shall now be closed for human traffic for 4 weeks, effective the 23rd of March 2020. In order to protect federal civil and public servants, a circular will be issued by the head of service of the Federation and shall direct on actions to be taken immediately. This evening, the head of service would work on a circular which she will release that will give us an indication of how we would proceed in dealing with the federal civil service and the public officers in the engagement of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. All Abuja and Lagos residents are strongly advised to stay at home, avoid mass congregation of any kind, as well as non-essential outings until further notice or advice is given.
The ban on gatherings of persons more than 50 has decongested social, religious and other gatherings. However, there are still individuals who have not fully complied, which has led to the Inspector General of Police ordering his officers in all states to ensure that the rule is not flouted. The Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Hanure, has been having a very tight schedule. Apart from working behind the scenes, he's had to keep the nation informed. First, it was daily briefing, but recently it's hard to predict how many times in a day he would have to speak to the people through the media. It's catching even more attention as broadcasts have had to indicate not just the date, but also the time.
While stations, land borders, and international airports remain closed, precautionary measures are also being taken by the federal government to protect our seaports. Only ships that have been at sea for more than 14 days can dock in our ports after crew members have been confirmed negative for COVID-19. An exception to this 14-day restriction are vessels carrying oil and compressed natural gas products, because they require minimal or no contact at all between the crew and the ground personnel.
Another approach has been the formation of task force by various state governments and the federal government to focus on the issues and consequences of the virus outbreak, as well as deepen enlightenment.
The goal of the task force is to provide overall leadership on the state's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, thereby giving protection or minimizing the effects, God forbid if it becomes necessary, and the impact of the disease on the population. Specifically, the committee would, among other things, be responsible for the following. 1, assessing the situation in the state in terms of the risk of the outbreak happening and designing a response plan to prevent, contain, and mitigate the consequences of such outbreak. 2. To identify a suitable isolation center or centers for the management of moderate to severe form of COVID-19 and equip such center or centers with required equipment, including ventilators. 3. To ensure the availability of necessary consumables and other medical supplies critical for the management of the COVID-19 outbreak in the state, God forbid. 4. To identify and recommend to the government a laboratory facility in the state for upgrading to COVID-19 compatible public laboratory for testing of suspected cases. To coordinate multiple sectoral and multi-stakeholder response to the containment of the pandemic.
While preventing the spread, handling the already affected persons is also important. Personnel, facilities and medical supplies are areas of concern at this time.
The hospital has trained over 400 members of staff on infectious disease prevention by the committee that we've talked about. And of course, we've also made sure that our holding bay, which is our isolation center that is made of 4 beds, which was built during the Ebola period, is also up and running. We have our staff there trained and retrained. In terms of collaboration, we have collaborations with a number of organizations and government. We have collaboration with the Oyo State Ministry of Health. In fact, they just recently gave us 102 PPE, personal protective equipment, which those who take care of patients with infectious diseases, either Lassa fever, Ebola or coronavirus infections wear.
Isolation centers have had to be created by state government, the most populated being the Infectious Diseases Hospital in Yaba, Lagos. But even before overwhelming cases, some states have created theirs as preparatory steps. It's now commonplace to see the use of sanitizers, even by VIPs. Washing of hands have not been this popular, and the media is awash with information on how to stall the spread of coronavirus. Preventive measures are still the best. Social distancing, washing of hands with soap and water or using sanitizers. Avoid touching your face and let's stay safe. Thank you for watching. I'm Ini John Mekwa.